War cry of Mirza. Nobody born before the year 2500 ever heard of Mirza. Anybody born after 2500 wished they'd never heard of it. Of all the useless, aimless corners of the universe, the asteroid Mirza probably rated first choice. That was why we had to battle for it. It was bad enough when history was confined to our own planet, Earth. They fought for places like the Crimea, Gallipoli, Korea, going back and forth across the same old battlegrounds until they'd worn them thin. But when it came to carrying such strife to other worlds and finally to the asteroids that hardly rated as worlds at all, it would seem that human folly had reached the ultimate. Yet it was on the asteroid Mirza that the fate of our solar system was decided, and the hero who saved it all for our side was Hai Kata. First, a few words about Mirza. Of the thousands of asteroids that form a belt of chunky space drift between Mars and Jupiter, Mirza was one of the largest yet the last to be discovered. The reason was that Mirza had an eccentric orbit that carried it inside that of Mars but beyond that of Jupiter. It didn't belong with the asteroids at all, this tiny planet with an area about that of Greenland. However, it formed a link between the inner planets and the outer. So it came to this. Mirza had to be destroyed. Back in the 20th century, the British blasted away the island of Heligoland because it offered comfort to Germany. So, in the 30th century, we, of the inner planets, decided to blast Mirza and thus prevent the hordes from Jupiter and beyond from ever again gaining control of it. In a way, it was like the atomic bomb test that some nation, I think it was one of the United States, probably Nevada, used upon the islands in the Pacific Ocean. So we had precedent at least when we went to Mirza, drilled deep into the asteroid and all planted our bomb there. Then we had trouble with the Mirzanese. They were a funny lot. Call one of them a Mirzanian or a Mirzanite, and they'd spear you with one of the obsidian lenses they all carried. They could chatter in any language of any planet, because they were a mixed breed that had developed during Mirza's perpetual wanderings. But their linguistic ability was deceiving. Outside of that, they hadn't any more intelligence than a monkey. Theirs was an ability to mimic rather than understand. The Mirzanese had a language of their own, but nobody else could even guess at it. If it wasn't that they actually understood each other, you'd think that it was so much double talk. They were chattering that way when we finished planting the bomb I spoke about. Then we politely invited them to leave in the spaceships that we'd brought from Mars, where we intended to set them up on the moon Phobos. They'd agreed to it. The Mirzanese had, but now they suddenly rebelled. So fast that you couldn't follow them, they flung their obsidian lenses and came out with shiny new beam guns that had been supplied by Jupiter Armo runners. We were armed with solar jet pistols that could spit concentrated hydrogen half a mile. So we set them back fast, behind the mounds that we'd had them dig when excavating to plant the atomic bomb. Then we realized how we'd been tricked. Those mounds were entrenchments. The Mirzanese could stave us off until we brought up thousands of reserves, which would take months at least. Unless, of course, our spaceships could bomb the Mirzanese out now. Before our ships could try, a strange fleet appeared from among the asteroids. They were outer planetary spacecraft coming to the attack. Our own ships went to meet them, but the odds were badly against us. We realized what it all meant. If the Mirzanese could hold us off, the outer planetarians would take over a world already mined with an atomic bomb. They would head it inward for Mars, Earth, Venus, or even Mercury and explode it with ruinous effect upon whichever planet it approached. Our one chance was to lick the Mirzanese now and blast their planet once and for all. Yet it would be suicide to spring from the low entrenchments that we had hastily improvised and attack the Mirzanese in their stronger positions. We knew it, and so did the Mirzanese, because they were the monkeys who had planned it. Now they began a concerted chant, Marsha yaks, yaks, orca, orca. It was in the language of Mars, and the Martians who were in our outfit began to laugh. I asked them what it meant. One told me, they are saying, you Martians are green. Very green, more than any other world. They think it will make us mad. We listened as the chant changed to a jargon that went Venevala Valavalu repeated over and over. I knew that one. It meant that anyone from Venus was soft and mere for cowardly. But the Venusians in our Ufid just kept punching away with their solar jets, hoping to silence some of the chanters. Then the chant changed. You are fools from Earth. It rang out. Stupid, dirty fools. We defy you. We dare you to show yourselves. Come to the open battleground and we will meet you there. Pigs, scum, filth that you are. Colonel Thrakamajoja, a very capable Mercurian, crawled up beside me. He understood English, and that was why he asked, do the taunts annoy you, Major Vec? Not at all, I told him. It's old stuff on our world, one tribe hurling epithets at another. Nobody with a brain beyond a moron's, which is above average for these Mirzanese, would be bothered with such childish stuff. Obviously, they want us to get excited and rush them, so they can drop us down with their beamers. I know, nodded the colonel. Don't worry if they start jabbering at my Mercurians. We'll give them the laugh too, but we still can't get at the monkeys. And time is short. It was then that Hai Kata edged over. He was just a private, but he wasted no time on ceremony. I happen to be a Mirzanese, Hai Kata said, but only by adoption. I was wrecked on this asteroid as a child and brought up as a Mirzanese until I outgrew their intelligence. You understand why they persist in flaunting you, don't you? Thrakamajoja and I shook our heads. Because they cannot abide taunts themselves, explained Hai Kata. So they are sure that sooner or later you will rush them. Listen to them. He paused, grinned as they repeated the chant in Martian. Then, did you ever meet anyone who could speak Mirzanese except one of the monkeys themselves? Again we shook our heads. I can, declared Hai Kata. Listen to this. Stauda yeserum, stauda esta og. I won't bother to translate it, but what it means in Mirzanese is plenty. He chuckled. Can you repeat it? I nodded and said, Stauda yeserum, stauda esta og. The colonel also nodded and spoke the same words perfectly. Pass it along and hurry, exclaimed Hai Kata eagerly. When everybody knows it, give the order for them all to shout it. We passed the word along and it made quick progress. Our fleet was retreating up there in the sky, but it would still have time to pick us up if we finished our job here on Mirza. Colonel Thrakamajoja waved his arms in signal. The Mirzanese chant, coming in English again, was drowned by the cry that issued from our trenches, Stauda yeserum, stauda esta og. Silence hit the Mirzanese line with the force of a beam gun. Again, louder, we raised our cry. Then, as we kept shouting, Stauda yeserum, stauda esta og, a wave of ugly, hideous figures arose from the Mirzanese trenches and came madly surging toward us. They were firing their beam guns wildly and they kept on coming. Even after their weapons were empty. They wanted to get at us, tooth and nail, but they never had the opportunity. We slaughtered them wholesale, only the bodies of the first comers protecting those behind them, until the final batch were withered by the blast of our jetfires and their horrible, frantic faces. To our cry of Stauda yeserum, stauda esta og, the Mirzanese were literally exterminated. Our space fleet saw the finish and swooped down to pick us up as we touched off the atom bomb. We were clear and a couple of Jupiterian ships were landing on Mirza when the whole asteroid blew apart. We had only one casualty from the blast, Hai Kata. He had never taken his immunity test through an oversight. The radioactivity got him and he died fast. I was with him at the end and the last words he breathed were, Stauda yeserum, stauda esta og. But before I could sisk him what it meant, his lips were sealed forever in a cryptic smile. The end.